So last week, I asked you guys over at Instagram to send me your burning questions, and I got so many awesome and amazing questions that I'm super excited to answer today in Q&A with Liza. If you don't yet follow me on Instagram, you can go ahead and do so right here, Pens and Poison. My Instagram handle is Pens and Poison. I'll share a lot of amazing poetry content, so please go ahead and give me a follow. You can also ask me some more questions over at Instagram that maybe I'll answer in a part 2 of this video. But let's get to it. Today, we are answering your burning questions and getting to know Liza Libes. Hi guys, my name's Liza and you're watching Pens and Poison. If you're new here, welcome. This is a channel where we discuss all things poetry and literature, and I guess today we're going to get to know a little bit more about me, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let's get to it. All right, guys, let's go ahead and answer some cool and awesome questions. I tried not to look at these too much beforehand to make the experience a little bit more authentic. So let's go ahead and pull up the first one. Ooh, what's my advice to new writers? This is a really great first question. So I'm gonna give a little bit of an unorthodox response to this one and say that my advice is to go out and experience as much of life as possible. I think a lot of writers are quite introverted. They tend to also be readers, which is obviously a good thing. We definitely want to read a lot of literature in preparation for, writing our own writing and putting it out there. But I think what maybe a lot of writers will miss is life. And, I always say write from experience. Obviously, a lot of people say that, but I do think it is one of the most important things in, writing your own fiction book or poetry or whatever it is that you're going ahead and writing. Even if you're writing something like a fantasy or a sci-fi novel, even all of that is informed by what you've experienced, what you've lived through in your own life. So my advice is definitely don't sit in your room, don't just read books all day, go out there, experience the world, and then go back and write it in your own writing, and your writing will just reach new heights. Okay, wasn't really expecting that one. That's kind of a fun question, or an interesting question, at least. So I'm gonna go ahead and give my honest take on Ayn Rand, because I know she stirs up a lot of controversy, especially in the literary world. She was definitely not an author that appeared on any sort of syllabi when I was in college and graduate school studying English literature. So Ayn Rand. So I think that the first thing that people need to understand about Ayn Rand is she comes from a very distinct background. So she comes from a Soviet background. So she was an immigrant from the Soviet Union. And a lot of people, might have a problem with her philosophy of objectivism, which places a really big emphasis on capitalism and competition and this sort of thing. And I think what people miss with Ayn Rand is understanding the background that she came from. So I do think that Ayn Rand is, not the best writer in the world from a stylistic perspective, but I'm not necessarily upset by any of her ideas, and I think they do sort of resonate with me as someone who also comes from kind of a post-Soviet cultural background. So, I think Ayn Rand is a very interesting character. I would not, deeply study her for any sort of stylistic prose, but I think she's worth giving a read, and even if you disagree with her, it's really interesting to, see what some of her ideas are, and see if maybe you can come up with some of your own better ideas and come up with a competing philosophy for objectivism, if you don't like her. These are very interesting questions. We started off with a very banal question, and now I'm supposed to be a rapper, apparently. So I'm personally not a big fan of rap music. It's just not my cup of tea. And, I don't necessarily think that all rappers are great wordsmiths, but, and I have the same opinion about like poetry slammers. I also don't think that being a good poetry slammer or participant in poetry slam necessarily makes you a good writer or poet. Saying a lot of words quickly in succession is not really the mark of a good writer or a good thinker. That being said, my favorite musical artist seems to be the second part of this question. I like two types of music, mainly classical music and classic rock music. So instead of listening to rap music, I'll give you some cool classical music composers. And I think the really cool thing about classical music is there's a lot of dialogue with poetry, especially in kind of the German tradition. So you have the composers Schubert and Schumann, who are setting a lot of kind of German poetry to to song, which I think is really, really cool. They're called Lieder, German Lieder. Definitely go ahead and give those a listen. There are a couple of really, really cool song cycles out there as well. That's Schubert and Schumann within the classical music tradition. My two other favorite classical music composers are Richard Wagner and Gustav Mahler, who also do a lot, obviously, with the literary tradition. Wagner wrote his own librettos, and Mahler is setting a lot of poems to songs as well. So definitely check them out. So if you're interested in kind of how music creates a dialogue with poetry, I would not go to rap music, I would go to classical music. That's just my take. Feel free to disagree with me. Classic rock also, I think, does a lot with kind of, creating a dialogue with words, and I do think that a lot of rock musicians have much more interesting lyrics than what you might find today in pop music or rap music. So check out the Beatles, check out Pink Floyd, check out David Bowie, all really, really great musical artists. Okay, that's actually not a basic question. That's a pretty cool question. What motivated me to go public? So I would say that, first of all, I was not kind of intending to go public ever, but I really needed a way to get my writing out there. And, we live in the 21st century, for better or for worse. I'm maybe a little bit more of a traditionalist, so I'm maybe not the happiest person with like the, technology / AI takeover in the world. But that being said, I do think the internet is a very interesting tool, or a tool that, we do have to live with nowadays. So it exists for better or for worse. And I have seen technology be a pretty cool platform that people have used to get their stuff out there. So, you've seen a lot of my kind of personal poems on this channel, and I think it's been a really fun way to kind of share some of my poetry with a broader audience outside of kind of, my immediate social circle. So, it really started off as a way for me to get my stuff out there. And I've, had a lot of really positive feedback, which is super, super exciting. So I think that's where it kind of started. And I just realized that I, really like making videos, really like talking to you guys, really love sharing the love of poetry. And it's become, quite a thing at this point. Not super big yet, but maybe hopefully soon. So definitely go ahead and subscribe to Pens and Poison while you're at it. What a boring question. Corporate America. Actually, well, I gotta do something cool. I run a college consulting company, so I help students edit essays, and I started this company about 2 years ago, now 2.5 years ago, almost. So, we're fairly new, but it's been quite a pleasure to work with student essays. And of course, I get to share my love of literature with my students as well. So that's always been super fun. So definitely check out Invictus Prep. That is my college consulting company. And that is what I do when I'm not like reading books or writing poems or, writing my own books and making these videos. What is my favorite poem? Yes, I love this question. Okay, fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and say the Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. You've probably heard me mention T.S. Eliot on this channel about 400 times if you've watched all of my videos, and I will continue to mention him because T.S. Eliot is my all-time favorite poet, all-time favorite writer. He is really amazing, and the Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock is about this guy named Prufrock. It's partially a social commentary, partially kind of a meditation on life and the futility of life, so definitely go ahead and check it out. It's probably one of the best poems of all time, and definitely my personal favorite. Okay, this is like the same question. T.S. Eliot. Should I give a different answer? I don't know. Nah, I'm just gonna go with Elliott. Elliott's cool. Oh boy. Okay, now we get to the joke questions. I wanted to include a couple of these because they're always kind of fun. I mean, I have never been to the South actually, so I couldn't tell you, but you should check out Shakespeare plays being performed in like the original like accent that people spoke with like back in Elizabethan England. Those are pretty cool. Okay, I mean, I'm just gonna show a Hieronymus Bosch painting for this one, just for those of you who don't know him. He makes kind of cool artwork. Dutch painter. Check him out. Okay, so back in high school, I was trying to develop discipline for reading more because it is hard and we're all super, super busy. And I read somewhere online, you need to go ahead and read 50 pages a day. And you just have to force yourself to do that every single day. And I did that. And I read like every single like book on the planet. Not every single book on the planet, but like most of the important ones I read in high school because I just forced myself to sit there and read 50 pages a day. And I kid you not, it works. It is the best thing that you can possibly do. What was the second half of the question again? Oh, how to remember what you read. Yes. Do I take notes? It depends on what I'm reading. I do generally take notes on like philosophy books, kind of more in-depth type books. Literature, like not really. It's kind of like with literature, I either remember it or I don't. And if I remember it, that means it was a profound work of literature. And if I don't remember it, then it probably wasn't as important, or I just wasn't paying attention, which also sometimes happens. Okay, this is probably a little bit of a blind spot of mine. As I said, I like to read older authors. I'm more of a traditionalist. So I haven't read that many contemporary books, to be honest with you. Like, probably the most contemporary author I've read is like Philip Roth, who's dead. So, you know, that's a fault of mine. I'm gonna admit it. I just like reading older things. I don't know why. I do know why. It's usually better. So when I'm 80 years old and there are books from 2024 that still survive and people are still reading, then I'll go ahead and read them because then, you know, we know that they're really good and awesome and worth my time. But I'm the sort of person who if I open a book and start it, I need to finish it. And I like to read books that I know will be amazing and incredible and will blow my mind. And part of the reason that the classics are the classics is people have been reading them for hundreds of years in many cases, and we know that they're amazing and they have something meaningful to say. And I think unfortunately a lot of fiction that's being published today does not have many meaningful things to say. So I personally don't read it. I know I'm gonna piss off a lot of people with this answer, but I've read some like contemporary books, but like not very many. I'm told that I should read Murakami. I know I need to read him. I will read him eventually. I'll get to it, but like I have so many other things on my reading list that I like to get to. And I'm also trying to like read more nonfiction, which I also didn't do before. Nonfiction aside from philosophy. Philosophy I've always read, but like kind of more, you know, books about the world. I think those are helpful to read as well. So yeah, eventually I'll get to contemporary fiction and I'll be able to answer that question. But the general answer is like, no. I think only the test of time can tell us if someone is truly great. So for now, we don't know, but we'll see what happens when I'm 80 years old and I'll go back and read a bunch of books that were published today. All right, well, those were all of the questions. Thank you guys so much for asking those over on Instagram. That was really, really fun. I hope you got to know a little bit about me and who I am, what I do, and which poets I love, T.S. Elliott. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed watching today's video, and we'll be back next week for more on Pens and Poison.